Rick Clark. I am a fifth-generation farmer from West Central Indiana. Everyone knows where Champaign, Illinois is, just come right across the state line, and that's where we are. Been there a long time. We've been on a journey of regenerative. I didn't realize it was called that, but we've been on this journey for a long time. They've given it a fancy name here lately. This is what drives our system. It's all about those principles. How do you maximize the principles? How can you benefit from them? And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the economic impact of what those have done for our farm, our journey of how we've come from A to B, and the ultimate goal today is to satisfy the audience. I want to try to answer every question that they possibly have. And the first thing that I would like to say about, I'm coming from a long distance away from Bismarck, North Dakota, but when you apply the principles, they work anywhere. So that's what we're going to drive home today. All right. I would like this to be about you folks, okay? So if you want to ask a question, ask me at the time, because that's probably the best time to address it. I've got a slide presentation. We can do whatever you want. I've got, I think, 45 minutes. I probably won't get through all the slides, but we'll see what we can do. Okay. I start every presentation with this picture right here, this slide. This is my immediate family. Folks, this is so important. You have to have the support of this group right here. They are with you. They have my back. Everything I do is supported by that group right there. So that allows me to open up my mind and think about how we can do things differently. And this is what you need to have. Our farm at home, we've been no-tilling soybeans for 21 years, no-tilling corn for 16, cover crops for 16, farming green for 14. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit, my definition of that. Epigenetics, I think this is the future. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. Biostimulants for 3 years, on-site bioreactors for 3 years. At home, everyone plants corn and soybeans in a rotation. If that's, I don't know what you call that, but that's monocropping. That's what everybody at home does. We now are up to nine crop system plus one. We're raising corn, soybeans, wheat, alfalfa, peas, buckwheat, milo, cover crops, sheep, and cattle. Plus one is what I call regen. This is where you take an acre out of production and you give it everything you can. How many times in North Dakota do you get to plant a warm season cover crop? So this is when you take advantage of that. So people get, like, wow, how can you take an acre out of production? Well, first year I implemented this was 4 or 5 years ago. We took 300 acres out of our operation. It's not a lot, but what happens is when you are in cold states, and I apologize, I should have told you where I'm from. I'm from West Central Indiana. Everybody knows where Champaign, Illinois is. Come across the line, come north about 15 miles, that's where we are. So it's a long ways from here. But everything that we do on our farm, you can do on your farms here. Jay did not ask me to come today and tell you folks how to farm. That's not why I'm here. Why would a guy from Indiana tell someone from North Dakota how to farm? I'm here to show you things that we're doing and take a couple of these ideas home with you. There's a great lineup of speakers today. Take something from every speaker and take it home and get it implemented on your farm. What we've been able to accomplish on our farm now is unbelievable. We have aggregate stability that's 12 inches deep. We've got water infiltration rates that are over 20 inches an hour. We've got earthworm counts of 2 million earthworms an acre. These are things that you can accomplish when you implement the principles. 5,600 acres certified organic. The remainder of the farm is in transition. We've not used any starter fertilizer for 11 years, no fungicides, no seed treatments. I mean, the fungicides and the seed treatments, I mean, if you want to wipe out your system, you just apply those. You just wipe it out. No insecticides, there's another one. It will just kill everything. I mean, I can't believe how many times in my younger days of farming, when we were still using inputs, and you'd go to the retail plant, and they're gonna do an application pass for you, and the guy at the retail plant would say, hey, let's just throw a pyrethroid in there. It's only a couple bucks an acre. And that one pyrethroid absolutely obliterates your microbial biome. And you are now set back to probably beyond zero. You're probably negative now. So it's very imperative that we stay the course. No P or K in 11 years, and you're going to see why in just a few minutes. No ag lime applied in 11 years. And I know there's more to pH than ag lime, but our pH on the farm is stabilized around 6.9 to 7, and it just stays there. It doesn't fluctuate because we've taken all the salt and all the acid out of the equation. So it's absolutely incredible what you can do to your soil if you give it a chance. And that's what we're trying to do. No nitrogen applied in 6 years. That's synthetic nitrogen, not applied in 7 years. And we're trying to do this with no tillage. Folks, this is hard. This is really hard. And I do not recommend anyone to do this. I mean, this is difficult. Let me give you the recipe of when we were probably the most successful, because I don't have the organic no-till thing figured out yet. I hope I do get better at it before I retire. It's going to be a long journey. But this was our recipe for what I thought was our best success on the farm. 100% no-till, 100% cover crop, 100% non-GMO, and 70% reduction of inputs. 70. That is huge. If you can do 70% reduction of inputs, think of what you can bring back to your bottom line, and think about what you're doing to save the ecosystem out here. I mean, my gosh, I wish they could put the blinds up, because that view right there is unbelievable. And we have to maintain that view no matter what it takes. Balance. This is all about balance. You have to get to a point in your farming system that you are creating balance. There's all kinds of tests you can do. I really like Rick Haney's soil health test. Soil health test. I really like this test. But let's remember, a test is only what it gives you at that moment in time. It's a snapshot. I'm diabetic. If you took my blood sugar before I walked up here and took a reading, and I take it when I get off the stage, there'll be two different numbers. When you take a soil sample out of your field and you come back in 60 days and take another one, they better be different results. Because if they're not, your system is dead. This is a dynamic, living organism, changing by the second. So what we do is, with the Haney test, we take those tests, we collect the data, and we see what is the trend. What is the trend of organic carbon? What's the trend of inorganic nitrogen? We plot all of this stuff. You don't need a lot of fancy schmancy equipment to know that what you're doing is correct. So anyone who has not started the journey but wants to start and doesn't know how, my first advice is baseline your farm. Take soil tests, take all the tests you can possibly take, and baseline where is your farm today. So that when you sit down 2 years from now, you can say, you know what? What we're doing is working, because look, this is where we were here, and now this is where we are now. So baseline, chart this data. What is the trend? So one of the things I wanted to talk about from Rick's test is he shows the relationship between bacterial-dominated soils and fungal-dominated soils. If you're in a high-tillage, high-fertility system, you are going to be extremely high bacterial and hardly any fungal. And as you move through the journey, you're going to see this happen. All you need to do is have one of Rick's tests and plot the data and see this happen, and you know that what you're doing is working. It's pretty simple. Well, on our farm now, when you incorporate everything that I showed you on those previous slides, we have done this. I didn't think it was possible. We have trees growing in the fields. We have flipped this thing too far. I've taken it too far. So we've got to reel this back in. We're out of balance the other way. Jay and I were talking about this earlier. I can't imagine how hard it'd be to go fungal here, where we are right here. But where I am, progression is real. The principles of soil health. This group better know what these are. Minimize disturbance. This, to me, means many things. It means soil disturbance with a piece of iron, and it also means chemical disturbance. And Jay, if I misrepresent these in any way, please correct me. This is, I've got this up as number one. I don't know if I should rank them because they're all important. But you have to try to figure out how to find that balance. Folks, this is about your context. Where are you on the journey? What is your risk level? What's your financial situation? All of these things play into the decision process of how are we going to handle the farm down. At home we call our farms by the owner's last name and the acres. So the Smith 120, the Brown 80, so on. But we have to be stewards of the land. If you are farming a highly erodible piece of dirt, for heaven's sakes, we don't do tillage. I'm in an environment that I am anywhere from 0 to 3 or 4% slope. And believe me, 0% slope fields still have erosion. People don't think that, but they do. So we got to be careful. Maximize diversity. That's what I'm all about. It is all about diversity. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. That's diversity. The amount of cover crops that you have in a cocktail, that's diversity. The number of cash crops you're raising and the rotation you have them in, that's diversity. We have to figure out how do we maximize the diversity. Living roots. You've got to keep a living root growing as many days as possible. Now, at home in Indiana, whenever the weather gets above 34, 35 degrees, the cereal rye fields that are growing or the wheat fields, whatever the case may be, they will green up and grow a little bit until you get back into the 20s, and then it turns kind of brown again. Then it warms up into 40s, and here it comes. That's a living root. It's just cycling all the time. Those microbes like to eat just like we do. Armor the soil. This one's imperative because you are doing all of this work to do what I mentioned earlier. Water infiltration rate, aggregate stability, all of these things you're building for that. And now you don't have your soil armored and you get a 90-degree day, and what's happening to the water in the profile? Got to keep it covered as best we can, armor it, and keep all of that good stuff in. Livestock. This is not for everyone. I often tell people the best livestock are your neighbor's livestock. Let them keep them alive in the North Dakota 30 below weather. I'll take them, though, from June to September, I'll take them. Work out a deal. Daily rate of gain, something. Work out a way to get those cattle, sheep, whatever the livestock is, to your farm. Show rotation or rotationally graze. I'm not a grazing expert. I'm not an expert in anything. There are people that know how to graze. There might be somebody that from this state that knows how to graze. So seek those people out. But I will tell you this, again, back to simplicity. I'm a very simple person. When you look at the crops that we raise behind a rotationally grazed field, whatever crop that is, if it's a soybean that we put behind the cattle or if it's a corn or a milo or whatever, that year, that field is the best yielding field on the farm. That's all I need to know about how important livestock integration is. And if I could add one more, Jay, it's commitment. You've got to be committed to do this. This takes time. It takes courage. You have to have thick skin. Ooh, people try to tear you down. You got to have thick skin. Usually for me, that people try to tear me down, that motivates me to make it even better. Farming grain, this is what I'm talking about right here. Planting the cash crop of corn and soybeans into a living, growing green cover crop, termination may not occur for up to 30 days. This right here is something that people say you can't do. You can't plant corn into cereal rye. Well, I beg to differ. There's the same field. Now, this was when we were still using inputs. I cannot do these practices anymore because what's happening here, you're going to see in a few minutes, the amount of sequestration power that this cereal rye has is unbelievable. And it's affecting the corn crop. So if you're going to do this, which you can, you need to understand what's happening. The nitrogen is being sequestered, and the other nutrients that corn plant needs are being sequestered. And this was back when we were still using a little bit of chemistry and a little bit of fertility. Now, this field was roller crimped with a roller crimper, and then we gave it a shot of nitrogen. Have to. The carbon to nitrogen ratio was way too high. Maximize what the cover crop was intended to do. You're going to see this in a few minutes. Sequestration of nutrients, nitrogen fixing, erosion control. I shouldn't use control there. That's too strong of a word. Erosion suppression. We can't control anything. Increased pounds of biomass, feed the microbes, and armor the soil. Imagine that. It's all kind of talking about the principles there. And then in our system, with being organic, no chemistry, no tillage up to this point, we're probably going to try to have to do something with tillage in the future. But anyway, we need the biomass to suppress the weeds. Do you see any weeds growing up through that alley there? There's not any yet. And the thing that I like about corn is see what's going on up here? It's already canopied over. So I have a 70-30 rule. 70% of weed suppression is from the cover crop and 30% is from the canopy of the cash crop. What drives our system? It's all about building soil health. That's what it's all about. I sacrifice yield every single day to maintain soil health. You have to. Go back to that pyrethroid event. If you're going out to target one species, let's say you're going out to target an armyworm, you're going to wipe out 2,000 beneficials. That you now cannot go back to those first slides I showed and told you where we've taken everything away. So please don't think you can leave this conference today after hearing that crazy guy from Indiana say he's taking everything away. We're going to go home and take it away. It doesn't work like that. It takes years to get to a point where you've built your system up to where it is now at a point where you can start taking things away. Diversification. I've already talked about this. It's what it's all about. It's all about diversity. Cash crop rotations, armor the soil. These are very similar to the principles, but human health. I don't think we think about this enough. There's two ways I look at human health. First way is increasing nutrient density. Truly believe that. It happens every time. The livestock integration magnifies that. So increasing nutrient density to the crops that you're growing. But the other side of the human health that we don't think about is the humans being around these caustic chemicals and herbicides. I mean, some of these things have skull and crossbones on them. That's death. I can't believe that we as an industry are allowed to work in the environment we work in. So we have to understand what drives our system. These are the main blocks right here. I mean, I can't remember, I don't remember if I was in a combine harvesting or a tractor planting. I don't remember what I was doing, but I'm sitting thinking about our family tree and the health that we have in our family. Uncle died of cancer. A nephew, 24-year-old nephew, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Sister-in-law dies of cancer. My mother has diabetes, or had diabetes. Unfortunately, mother's not with us any longer. Brother has diabetes. I have diabetes. You start thinking about why. And you have to start implementing practices that promote human health. Remember my first slide? Had 3 beautiful grandchildren in that slide. They're not going to be around this stuff. It's too caustic. It's not worth it. You don't realize how important health is until you don't have it. Yeah.
Have you seen trends through your progression here with the nutrient density of your...
As the grains increase in nutrient density? Yeah. I don't do that testing a lot. What I typically will do is I'll test things like that for 2 or 3 years, and if it still was on the incline, I probably won't test that particular crop again because I'm still using the same methods. But yes, the nutrient density is showing increases over time. And let me go back to my validate. That was what the question was. Have I seen nutrient density increase? Here's another way that I like to go up to 50,000 feet and just kind of look down and just make it simple. When we get phone calls from chicken layer people that want to buy our organic corn, and we ship the organic corn to them, within 1 week of shipping that corn to them, I get a phone call and they say, I can't believe what is happening to our layers. We've got more eggs now than we used to have. The percentage of chickens laying is increasing, and the quality of the egg has increased tremendously, and the taste from the consumer we're getting back is a positive. That's after 1 week of putting our corn into their ration. That's the kind of stuff that tells me that's a validation. We're doing it right. Thanks for the question. Being a good steward. It's all about being a good steward. I mean, that's a self-explanatory word, good steward. ROI, this is what it's all about, folks. It's not about maximizing yield. That's not what drives, you see that, you see yield up there anywhere? That's not what drives our system. I know that's hard to understand right now, but once you get into what we're doing, and you're going to see later on in my presentation why this works. Good data. Good data leads to good decisions, which puts you in a position of strength. You have to collect data. I told you earlier, baseline your farms and start collecting data. Now, what we've done also to incorporate is as a crop or a cover crop is growing, we're starting to incorporate sap analysis. If you don't know what that is, look that up. It's another way to run parallel with Rick's test, because you could have the most available nutrients in the world in your soil profile, but if you can't get them into your plant, what's the point, right? So that's what that sap analysis does. It takes the oldest leaf on the plant and compares it to the newest leaf on the plant. That will tell you what's going on within the plant's life. Take advantage of the free stuff. Do we know what this is? One of the young folks in the room, what is this? Anybody? Anybody in the room? What is it? Photosynthesis. Sugar. Whoever said sugar, you're spot on. This is photosynthesis. Now, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a chemist, and I'm not an ecologist. I wish I was all of those, but I'm not. And I'll go ahead and give my recommendation for the young folks in the crowd. You can take this as you will. I have a lot of young folks always ask me. I try to do as much with the local FFA as I can, because that's where the future is. And they say, Rick, what should we go to school and learn if we're going to want to farm like you farm? My personal opinion is you need to go to school and major in biology, minor in ecology, and minor in animal science. Those three things will get you down the road a long way because, folks, what we're doing out here is all about biology. I wish I understood that if you do this, you get this reaction. Those are the things we have to understand. If you add this product, the unintended consequence, and believe me, folks, everything in life has unintended consequences. Everything. What is the unintended consequence if I add this bug in a jug of company ABC? We need to know what that is. The energy from the sun is powerful and it is free. At least it still is today. This is a slide that I like to put up, and again, this may or may not pertain to this context, but you can do something like this. One day I wondered what is going on in the cover crops that we're raising in the above ground material. I don't know why this ever came to me, but it just did. And I thought we need to understand what's going on. So this was a cornfield in the fall, harvested the corn, planted cereal rye at 100 pounds of Elbon cereal rye, along with, I believe this particular slide had 4 other species with it that all winter killed. A radish, sorghum Sudan, I think maybe sunflower and sun hemp were in there also. And I wanted them to winter kill because I want this to be a bean field that we are going to terminate with a roller crimper. So it's going to be soybeans in the spring. 12-inch rye. Now, you remember when I said a lot of articles say that you can't plant corn into cereal rye? Here's the part of some of the reasons. Now, there is some allelopathy taking place, but I think this over trumps that. Look at this 18-inch rye. That was 4 days of growing. And we're up to 120 pounds of nitrogen in that above ground material. So this is what you do. And I would think that anybody in this room should be doing this, even if you're a grazer, because I think you're going to see that how important this is. You go to the hardware store and you buy 3/4 inch PVC and you build a 2 foot by 2 foot square. The reason why you're doing a 2 foot by 2 foot square is because you want to be able to take this data and translate it back to a per acre amount. That's what we've done. So you walk out in the field and you set this 2 foot by 2 foot square down and you clip everything off in that square. You put it in a bag and you send it to Lance in Nebraska at Regen Ag Lab and ask him for a feed analysis, and this is what you get. Now, if I were to put everything that was on that test on here, it'd fill up the whole wall, okay? I just picked out a few items. 28-inch rye. Look at where we are on the nitrogen, folks. But look over here under the 007. I've made the conversion to potash. Look at this, 281 pounds. Is all of this available for the crop now? No, it is not. But there will be enough converted through the microbial biome to make it available to raise that soybean crop. Now do you understand why we don't apply P or K anymore? We let the system regenerate these nutrients from deep within the profile, bring them back to the surface, and become available for your cash crop. Now, the beautiful thing about this nitrogen column, and again, this goes back to Rick's test, this nitrogen is in the organic state. That's good and bad. If it's in the organic state, the only way that nitrogen is leaving the farm is if the soil leaves the farm. It will not wash out. That's good. The bad thing is if you get too high of organic nitrogen, it's not plant available. It has to be converted. So we got to be careful. We got to worry about the balance again. But now you're starting, remember I had the slide, data is powerful. You can make decisions based on this kind of data. I mean, this takes years to build slides like this. Thank goodness I had my brain hooked on, because honestly, this one is probably the most important one. This dead right line is probably the most important one out of all of them. Look under the 0060 column now. Look at what has been exhausted out of that cover crop. That, to me, validates that, yes, we are pulling nutrients deep from within, and they are being regenerated and made available for the crop. And the other beautiful thing about this nitrogen column is that nitrogen that's left over is going to be there available for the next crop you plant, which I sure hope is a cover crop. And let that cover crop soak all that nitrogen back up and hang on to it. You know, I always say, I don't know who's in the room. Are there any livestock people in the room that put manure on their fields? I've always suggested you don't put manure on a field unless you've got a growing cover crop, because that cover crop becomes your nitrogen stabilizer. All right, I took that slide and I took the big boys out of here. N, P, and K. That's the only three most people ever care about. Put a value to it. 12-inch rye, 18-inch rye. Look at the 28-inch rye here. Almost $440 worth of value in that above ground material. And then this is the numbers I used. I don't know where N, P, or K values are today because I don't much care. I would imagine it's still pretty close to these numbers. So this is the. I woke up early on the 20th. I built about 4 slides on the 22nd. It just kind of came to me one day, and I just did it. All right. This is the power of patience. This is what June the 8th looks like in Indiana for the most part. 12,700 pounds of biomass. That is Balanza fixation clover. A couple things I want you to take a look at here. Do you see any weeds? We're in an organic system with no chemistry for years, and look at that. This is where you have to get started from, right here. But I want to tell you folks, if you're not trying to do what we're doing, that's great. We used to do this and pull into the field with a half a rate of Roundup and crush it all and no-till corn into it and put on 60 units of synthetic N and raise over 200 bushel corn. That's how you maximize the system. So there's many ways to take advantage of a legume or a cover crop with multiple families in it. That's where I'm kind of taking my thinking now is. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is how we feed the corn and suppress weeds all at the same time. So again, we're going to go out and, I forgot to ask the question, but that's all right. Right now, we are breathing 78% nitrogen right now. Isn't that something? 78% nitrogen. If we were to go out here and look at the landscape, there's 20,000 tons of nitrogen above every acre of ground. 20,000 tons. And how many pounds do we need to raise a corn crop? 100? I mean, come on. Can't we make that conversion? Capture some nitrogen with legumes. Same thing. Now, this is a little bit different, though. 2 foot, 2 foot, same 2 foot, 2 foot square. Okay, let me set it up, though. In our farming system now, that we are becoming perennials. It's just progression. We have volunteer everything. We've got volunteer vetch. We've got volunteer rye. We've got volunteer chicory. We've got Canada goldenrod. We've got Canada thistle. Where's those darn Canadians at? Thank you for all that. And those darn clippers that you send down here. You can keep all that stuff. But anyway, these are things that develop over time when you start to farm the way we farm. Progression is real. Grasses come first, broadleaves, trees and shrubs. We've got trees growing in our fields. We'll go into a soybean field that's got a sickle bar, cutting everything off at the ground, come back next summer at the next cash crop, and there's trees that are 4 feet tall growing. So this is not quite pure Balanza fixation clover. It's not quite that, okay? There's a little bit of some of the other stuff in there. May 20th, 75 pounds of N, above ground material. June the 4th, 114 pounds of N. Look at all of these things. Look at the calcium, K2O. Now the next push of my button is 4 days. Isn't that nuts? 262 pounds of nitrogen in that above ground material. A lot of people want to say I've got a calcium problem because I fight foxtail. Possibly. But this goes back to what we talked about earlier. The test results show that there's calcium in the profile, but is the calcium readily available for the plant to uptake? That might be the problem. So then we need to figure out how to get something introduced to make that calcium become available, or boron, or sulfur, or whatever the case may be. Again, I had my brain hooked on, came back 6 weeks later, took a test, and look at the exhaustion now of what is left. Is all of this available for that corn plant? No. But folks, again, you can agree or disagree with me, but in the system that we are currently in, you have to look at what is a realistic yield for the way you're farming. To me, organic, no tillage, cover crops, a realistic corn yield for me is 140 bushel. My neighbors are trying to get to 300. How many units of N does a 140 bushel corn crop need? 70? 80? Maybe 90? We got a 210 difference right here. I think I can pull 80 units of N out of what's been created here. 5,200 pounds per acre of organic carbon. Carbon to nitrogen ratio is 20-1. It's a little higher than you think it would be, but it goes back to what I said. It's a volunteer. Some rye was in there. The only thing that I really wish I would have done different here, and folks, I don't know why I picked June the 8th, but that's the day we planted our organic corn, was June the 8th. I wish I would have taken a test on June the 9th, left a strip, taken a test on the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, and seen where this thing might have gone. I was just tickled to death with the results we got. Any questions to this point? Okay. Same thing, took the 3 big ones, May 20th, June 4th. Look at the green over there at the right. Look right below that 468. Look at that. Isn't that nuts? Now, my suggestion for anyone, most people are, I don't know, when do you plant corn up here? Anybody? Nobody plants corn? Is there anybody that plants corn in the room? You do? When do you plant? May 15th. How can you do that in North Dakota? I'm from Indiana, which is, I don't know how many miles south of you. I plant corn on May 28th to June the 8th. Wow. So what I always recommend is, if you are still using chemistry, depending on what you're planting, GMO or non-GMO. If you're planting non-GMO, you've got about 6 days from when you plant to when you need to spray, because your crop will be out of the ground. If you're GMO, sky's the limit. Plant somewhere in here, terminate somewhere in here, and you get the benefit of all this. We never, ever terminated a cover crop until after we planted. Never. I want that engine to crank as long as it can. Now, granted, when you pull into a field like this with a big planter, a big tractor, you're smashing a lot of this down. I get it. But there's still plants out there that are fixing nitrogen. There's the same thing. I use the same numbers. Okay. Weapon of mass destruction, number 1. Air seeder. And this is to be against weeds. We have to get a plan in place that gets cover crops planted. Now, the hardest one, in my opinion, is corn. Is trying to get a cover crop package ahead of a corn crop. So when do you harvest the corn typically? October? And it's getting cold. What are you going to plant? It's hard. But back at one of my first slides, I showed you with our 9-crop system, I gave you 3 ways to get a cover crop established ahead of a corn crop, even in North Dakota. I talked about a cereal grain in there. I talked about livestock, and I talked about regen. So when you become creative and you plant a cereal grain and you take that cereal grain away and do not double crop any other crop behind it, that's when you have an opportunity to put in the cover crop that you need to plant to raise a corn crop to reduce your synthetic load. I always say to folks, if you can get those legumes to grow like you want them, it's always, I really don't know of a good metric in the fall other than if legumes get to the 3rd trifoliate, they typically will survive the winter, typically. But you guys get way colder than I do and way deeper than I do. But if you can get these cover crops to come out in the spring and show up to the party, then all I ask is take 30 units of N out of your synthetic load and replace it with the legumes and see what happens. And don't look at yield compared to yield. Look at ROI compared to ROI. What did the field make? I mean, Chevy doesn't build trucks just to build trucks. They want to make some money. And the farmers should look at the farm the same way. We're not going to just raise corn to raise corn. Let's make money raising corn. Weapon of mass destruction number 2 against chemicals. This is a I&J roller crimper, and this is how we've gotten to where we are today, by terminating cover crops with a roller crimper. And this, again, being organic with no chemistry, it really limits the species that we can plant. So my diversity pool is getting small. If you still use chemistry, you ought to be implementing every species known to man or woman. I'm probably way out of time. Actually, I'm on the last slide, so I'm not going over time. Or no, I got one more, I guess. I'm sorry. As soil health increases, so does human health. This will blow your mind. 30% less nutrient density than 25 years ago. I don't understand how this has been allowed to happen. I don't understand. I need someone to explain to me how we could decide to make food that is less nutritious. 8 oranges today equal 1 orange 50 years ago. Why? Shipping, packaging. It's probably the 2 biggest reasons. I mean, go to the grocery store. What's a banana look like when you go to the banana section? They're green. How much nutrients do you think have been left behind by planting that or by harvesting that crop a month too soon? So we have to figure out how we can grow food and package that food and make it more local to the people. That's what I think needs to happen. You need to have more local distribution, not big mega centers. I believe that is the last slide. It is. So I'm absolutely honored to be here, and I can't thank you enough for having me. And we got more great speakers coming, and I think I'm up again after lunch. So Thank you very much.